Hi Tom, Matt, Kate and Mitch. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Sim, your father. Few years ago, after the funeral, your mom Sue asked me if I would write something, some of my memories or my impressions of Sim, that you guys could read when you get to later in your life. And this just hung over my head, and I didn't do it, and I didn't write this thing. And I've always remembered that your mom had asked me to do this, and I've never written it. And then the other day I was with Miriam, my girlfriend, and we were driving somewhere, and I saw an Isuzu Bucky, and it just cast my mind back to your dad, and I started telling Mireille about your dad, and then I got to telling her that there was this thing that I'd never written, and she said to me, well, why don't you do it to a camera? So that's what we're doing here. I've decided to do this thing and say some things to you about your father, and the impressions I had of him, and the impact he had on my life, and I thought it might be nice for you guys to know. What you have to remember though is that if I talk to you about Sim, it can only ever be my impressions. It's not. I can only give you the Sim that I knew through my worldview and through my life experience. So you can't take it all as fact, and you can't take it all as this is how he was in this. But I can only give you my impressions and my experience of him. And the very first thing that I think about when I think about Sim is energy. He just seemed to have such amazing energy and enthusiasm and zest for life. And if I think about his life, I mean, his life ended early. You know, he ended it. He's a relatively, it might not seem like it to you, but he was a relatively young man when his life ended. But he just packed so much into that life. It's, you know, he lived every minute of every day. This is my impression, that he just lived so much of that life of his, just with his interest in all sorts of different things, his business interests, his interests in nature, his interests in learning about life, and if I think back over the years, I mean, I didn't spend lots and lots of time with him. I wasn't like one of his mates that lived in Harare and saw him on a weekly or monthly basis. I would see some, you know, maybe once a year I'd get to hang out with your family and Sim and Sue for a few days, you know, once a year for a period of time. So I don't really know Sim in the context of ordinary day-to-day life. Every now and then I'd see a little bit of him in ordinary day-to-day life, but the one impression was just of this energy and this eagerness. And I can remember when I used to stay over at your place, and I'd get up. I think I was getting up quite early, like 6 o'clock in the morning or something like that. And Sim would have been knocking around in that house already for a couple of hours. He'd be sitting and reading, and he was. I remember at one stage he was reading a book about the 7 habits of effective people. So my impression was that he was someone who was always looking to learn and grow, and how to be a better person, how to live a fuller life, how to be a more effective at what he does, how to be a more effective in his business, and he just used every minute of every day. I've said that already. Let's look at my notes on him. there's, when I get a picture of Sim's face in front of me, and him telling a story, because he loved telling stories, and there'd just be this little twinkle in his eye, which to me just reflected that energy that used to run through him all the time. He must have been a handful as a kid. He must have been. I can only imagine that he was one of those kids that was running around from pillar to post. I don't know this, but I can only imagine, because there was just that when I was with him, there was just that energy and that enthusiasm. My experience, I used to, now and then I would come through Harare, and Sim and your mom used to just open your house to me, and so I just found that extraordinary generous of them, and we're talking about Sim here, but Sim in particular, just extraordinarily generous. Nothing was a problem, nothing was too difficult. Like, if he would just always make things as easy as he could. He was just very, very generous person, and was just keen to help me to make my stay easier. He'd lend me a car. I mean, at one stage he lent us a car to go up on a trip up to the Eastern Highlands. I mean, he used to be very, very generous, and that's something that always struck me. Sim arranged a few trips that I was lucky to be a part of. Trips into nature, trips up to Kariba, trips into monopools, and she had some fantastic times. And I'll always be grateful for some of those experiences that I had with your father. I found that when he got into nature, that's when he really just seemed to come alive. He got so excited about walking in the bush. I can remember walking once, before he ever carried a firearm, we were walking in monopools once, and with your mum. I'm not sure who else was with us. Certainly the three of us, and I think there was someone else as well. And we were walking in monopools, and Sim was walking at the front, and then next thing I see him stop, and he spotted a group of lions underneath a tree, and I could barely see them. Eventually, when he pointed them out, I could see them, and he was just, from having walked in the bush before, he knew that he could, just that shape. His eyes would pick up that shape of a head with two pointy ears, and he knew that shape. It was an amazing experience. And another time we're in the speedboat on Kariba, and I think there were two bull elephants. I think the Chura bull had died by that time, but I think there was the Karonga bull, and there was this amazing huge elephant with massive tusks, and we managed to get within 10 meters of this elephant on the speedboat, and the elephant was drinking water at the dam, and the elephant was totally ignoring us, and we were just able to spend such an amazing little bit of time with this elephant. And the point of telling these stories is just some generosity, just the fact that I was able to join him on these experiences, and that he made that available to me and to who knows how many other people he did that for, and that he wanted to share that joy that he got from wild natures, wild things and wild places with other people. I thought it was a wonderful trait of his. I found, even from the very first time of meeting Sim, there was this just an openness and a warmth about him. He wasn't he he wasn't someone that you wondered what was going on with him. You could see, he was for me when I was with Sim, there was just a straight channel of communication. He was just there and present. There wasn't funny things going on in the background and like you get with some people. There's just I find great openness and warmth in him. When I think back to how I knew your mother, we were an item at one stage when we were in the early university or in university, and we kept up that friendship. And for a lot of men, that would be a problem if an ex-boyfriend was a friend of his girlfriend or his wife. And for Sim, there was just never an issue. There was just never an issue. Sim just welcomed me like any friend of Sue's, and he, I think he never had any insecurity about who he was and what he was, and what his relationship with your mother was like. So he was just very open and warm and welcoming of me. And I could sit here and I could tell lots of stories about things that we did or stories that he told me, but I don't think that's really what makes a person who they are. I don't, those stories are rah rah rah. I don't think that's what makes a person who they are. I think who a person is in the not the stories, in the day-to-day life, how they treat another human being, how they look after their family, how they and when I think of Sim, then that's what I think of. I think of someone who treated people with respect and integrity. For example, in Southern Africa, we have this very unfortunate history of white people and black people in Africa, and still to this day in Southern Africa, I find myself in certain conversations with people. I find it just so uncomfortable how white people that I'm with refer to black people. And Sim took the trouble to learn an African language, and when I saw him interacting with black people, there seemed to be this mutual respect, and they felt respected because he spoke to them in their language, and it wasn't just this. It felt like in his demeanor, he was respectful of people, and he treated them like he would treat any other person, and I think that's very that's a very admirable trait to have. I didn't ever hear Sim speak ill of anyone. I didn't hear him speak of people behind their back and say what a arsehole this one is, or what a dumb person this one is. I didn't hear him do that, and that's also admirable to me. Someone who just minds his own business, does what he does well, treats people how he would like to be treated, doesn't talk about people. I just thought that was the kind of person that he was. I also think about I wasn't with Sim when he was a young man, but what what I saw of him is how he took responsibility. How it seems that when he was a young guy, he decided he wanted to make his way in the business world, and he started off with selling tomatoes, and then he moved into some of the other stuff that he was doing later in his life. But he was, he wanted to be able to look after himself and his family and his mother, and in the end he helped to build a business that was supporting a lot of people, and supporting, both family members and employees. A lot of people were reliant on that business that he helped to develop from nothing. And yeah, I find that admirable in a person. I'm not sure how much else there is that I'd want to say. I think, just when I think of what makes a a life a worthwhile life. I mean, every life is a worthwhile life. But when I think back on the lives that I've admired, I'm not that interested in people that leave this legacy. They have 7 streets named after them, and a business that they've built up, or a world record for having done this the fastest, or the longest, or the highest, or whatever. I think who a person is and how they live their life in any moment, I think that's what makes a person's life admirable. And when I think back to Sim, that's the impression I have. I like the way he lived his life. I like who he was, and the values that he had. I think he was a good man, and I think you could do a lot worse than to follow his example. So thanks for listening to me this far.